Story 1. Lost $500 to corrupt Mexican cops because of weed pen. So in order to avoid getting my car impounded and spending a day in jail, had to pay ransom money for vaping a weed pen. Feel terrible and disgusted with myself. More for the fact that it all felt like a robbery and the cops were threatening my friend's girlfriend from France. It was a traumatic experience. Need to vent. So anyone who has experienced something similar, I am all ears. Story 2. I lied about hurting my ankle, but it turned out to be actually broken. So when I was in 3rd or 4th grade, I don't remember, I really didn't want to go to one of my baseball games the next day. It was out of town and I wanted to hang out with my friends that day. I decided that I was going to fake sprain my ankle because that's the most plausible way. Don't know how I thought I'd be able to see my friends with an injury, but whatever. Anyways, my mom was in the living room and I fake tripped over the table. We made the waterworks come and everything. Looking back, I don't think I was too believable, but my mom decided to take me to the ER anyways. I was crying the whole way there, and when we got there, they rushed me in. They took x-rays and gave me an IV. All the fun stuff. Here comes the wildest part. It was actually broken. My growth plate was fractured, and they immediately put me in a cast. I've always had a high pain tolerance, but that was actually freaky. It didn't hurt at all. They showed us the x-ray and everything, said I might need surgery, and they needed to monitor the fracture. They had to x-ray me frequently after that to make sure my foot would still grow normally as well or something like that. I did successfully get out of that game, though. I was not too happy about being in a cast and a boot for a few weeks. Story 3. I did awful things to be a part of a friendship group. I'm not sure if this belongs here, but I do blame myself for what happened. When I was little, around 7, I think there was this group of girls who I wanted to talk to. I thought they were the coolest people ever, and I wanted so badly for them to like me. One day I went up to them and asked to be their friend. Being 7, this had worked for me up until this point, so I was shocked when they said no. I didn't know what to do, and I was so embarrassed, but the next day I decided I would try again. I had a lot of determination then, and I went back to them every single day for about 2 weeks maybe. Eventually, they agreed to let me join their group if I passed a series of challenges. They were all I had wanted to be a part of, and so I gladly agreed. The first challenge was that I had to eat a mud sandwich. One of the girls had brought 2 pieces of bread specifically for me. I thought it was really disgusting, but they were already acting like we were friends, so I couldn't say no. I ate the entire sandwich. It was grainy and soggy, and I still remember what it tastes like to this day. My second task was to go into the school bathroom with a boy in our class. I really don't remember much about it, except we were both naked at some point. It really scares me that I have no idea what happened in that bathroom. After I had done the last 2 challenges, the girls brought out a bunch of worms. They told me to lay down and close my eyes. They pulled down my tights and put the worms in my underwear. I had to keep them in my pants for 2 minutes, and then I would finally be allowed to be their friends. I wish I could say that when I got older, I stopped being their friend. But that didn't happen. I stayed in their friendship group until I was 13. And the only reason I stopped talking to them is because I moved and they started to ignore my texts. Story 4. I work in PR and all literally of my work is from ChatGPT. I left journalism and into PR this year as I needed to prioritize my health, wealth, and social life. I always knew PR was a bit of a joke, but my God, how no one in my company has figured out that all my press releases are 100% ChatGPT is quite hilarious to me. Story 5.
I am jealous of my niece's pregnancy. I love my niece, and I will love her baby. But I am so jealous of her pregnancy I can barely force myself to be happy for her. It's a big struggle, and I am not even in the same state as she is. So I have been able to avoid the whole baby bump thing this whole time, but next month is her due date, and we plan to travel and see her. Part of me can't wait to see the baby, and part of me dreads it. Is that selfish? I know it probably is, and I hate myself for it. I have felt this way for years, since my own son died just before his birth 21 years ago. Why I feel the way I do. I have had therapy, and I am okay except for that. I would never tell my niece this or anyone else. I am ashamed and embarrassed to feel this way. I have issues of jealousy with newborns too. It will take some time before it ends. I almost feel like I need to face this head on, which means looking at bump pics and saying how happy I am when I am not. I am angry. It's not fair. I wanted my baby so bad. This was going to be my third son. My Jacob. It was because of the shitty doctor I had that this all happened. She killed him. Her uneducated ass killed him. She also ended my ability to have any more babies. The loss of a child, whether stillbirth or baby loss or adult child loss, is one of the most torturous things a parent can go through. I would never wish it on anyone. But I have wished for a certain person who I won't name to live 1 hour in my shoes. Feel the pain I feel every day. They insulted my grief. That was the only time I wished someone else could feel what I felt. I think I need a therapy session.
Story 6. My best friend fell in love with someone from online games. I'm a guy 35, and I have a female best friend who is turning 27 soon. I love secretly because I don't want to ruin our friendship for 12 years. Last February, she got addicted to an online game and suddenly started dating a man who was 3 years older than her. I was so sad and devastated, but one day the guy stopped communicating with her and my best friend lost all of her interest in everything. She barely even ate and attempted to commit suicide. I feel bad for her because he really trusted this guy and he just ghosted her. I wanted to pursue and confess my feelings for her, but I'm not sure when. To all men out there, please, if you can't commit, don't tell people that you love them. You might end up destroying someone else's life. Story 7. I had a procedure done today, and not a single person checked on me. No one in my family. What little family I have left. No one I call friend. One person whom I've never met texted me this morning telling me to not worry, that everything will be okay. We've texted 4 times. About eggs. She's a first-time customer for me and she cares more about me than those I consider close. I had a bone marrow biopsy. Everyone knows I was terrified of having it done, yet no one checked on me. Sure, I'm an adult. I shouldn't care. But I do. I answer every phone call or text from them. I drop whatever I'm doing to go to them when they need me. I listen to their 1 a.m. phone calls about their husbands, wives, and kids, even though I have work at 7 a.m. I house, feed, and clothe them when needed. Spend countless hours in the ER with them, and I've never brought it up. Still, no one checked on me. I'm being tested for cancer, in which my oncologist believes the results will reveal to be the case. I had to beg him to be 100% open about it, and none of this we won't know until the results come back. I've had every test under the sun. For 2 years, my family knows this. I'm terrified. I'm scared. I'm unsure of my future. I'm lonely. This made me realize if something happened to me, no one would ever know. No one would care to check on me. I would go months without hearing from them unless they needed something or I call. I don't know why I'm even saying this. It's not a pity party, but a realization. I just want one person to check on me, one person to tell me they'll be there for me, to tell me everything will be okay, and if it's not, I won't have to go through it alone. I'm scared. I'm alone. I'm sorry. Story 8.
I never told anyone about last summer. I feel like I need to get this off my chest. Last summer was one of the worst times in my life, and nobody knows about it. It all started in winter 2023 when I met a guy, let's call him Dan. We meet because I kinda knew some of his friends, so his account popped up on my page, and we started chatting. Soon after he decided to confess and plan out first date, and everything was amazing. Dan was a nice guy who actually wanted to know me. I left myself be the most vulnerable with him, and he understood me. Dan was suffering from mental illness due to his past, and I understood that from the beginning, and I told him, if he ever needs help, I'll be here, and even if he called at 2 a.m., I'd be there for him. The cracks started to show during the first months we had a fight, but it was more like him yelling at me for everything I do and judging me and saying I'm not good enough. It got to a point I got physically sick and had to throw up because he put me to read some evidence. Of my flaws, we're in the car and I get car sick easily. But I stayed because I was in love, and since I am inexperienced with romance, I thought it's normal to have an occasional fight. And that's where the pattern started. He'd be an angel for a while, then blew up at me and yell and judge me, and every time I tried to defend myself or try to understand him, I'd just be called a gaslighter or that I was throwing a pity party. And so I learned to apologize. I had to promise over and over again and be sorry for everything, from the way I write messages to the fact that I don't send enough pictures of myself I can't look in the mirror. And he expected that yelling at me would make things better. We're long distance most of the time, since he lived an hour and a half away. The only dates we had was if it was something related to his interests. I watched car shows, listened to his endless complaint about everything in society countless times, and I always put down everything for him. He also never made any choices. He answered, "Do you want to do this with you most of the time?" And even when it was about his personal life, I had convinced him to eat and drink water. But I kept on going because I was helping him. I understand how hard mental illnesses can affect people, so I tried my hardest to be the best for him. I let down so many of my boundaries. I didn't like video calling, yet I did it daily with him. I didn't like being spam called if I didn't respond to a message in 2 minutes, but I was there for him. I was isolating myself from everything that wasn't him. I was giving him all my love and he was doing the same. It became suffocating. It all came to an even worse point during the summer, because due to a misunderstanding, I have lost my best friend and most of my friends. Loneliness was miserable on its own, but I had to keep trying hard for Dan. I remember clearly some of the fights, some of the insults he threw at me. He constantly accused me of cheating with my best friend, the last person I had of my old friend group, whom I barely talked to, mind you, like 2 times a week at best. And yet I was in love with her, and that's why I wasn't good enough for Dan. He was constantly saying that he's taking accountability, but he never was. He loved calling me a fucking idiot, and that I don't listen to him enough, because instead of listening to him all the way, him ranting and screaming at me for hours about how shitty I was, I start asking him to talk about the issue a bit later after we both calmed down. I had nights where he'd come over and he'd start the fight, and I had to cry for an hour or so for him to just stop for today so we can go to bed. And despite all of this, I haven't called him any names. I haven't called him a gaslighter for not letting me express my emotions. I just accepted it. But all other times, he was an amazing boyfriend. He knew me and I knew him. He opened up his soul and was honest. If there wasn't so much good, I would have left earlier, but he never liked being alone, and so I was helping with his loneliness while I was bearing mine. And it was not like, oh, haven't communicated with him. I told him all of this multiple times, all of my problems and sorrows, so we'd potentially try to fix it together, but it led to nowhere. When we broke up a bit before our 1-year anniversary, I did a stupid mistake. I asked him if he wants to break up, because after being threatened with, "Oh, so you want to break up so badly so many times," and he said, "I'd do you." I told him my opinion on our relationship, how it was burning me out to see him constantly self-implode on me, and that in this circumstances I would, even though I still loved him. And he took that as a sign of that I never loved him. And he's still adamant about this to this day. Maybe I'm weak for not managing to put up with all the fighting and for not trying hard enough, but I was getting tired, and I was feeling like I wasn't helping him other by having this resentment, and sometimes going away is the strongest thing you can do. But he was still ill, and I can't blame this fallout on him entirely. Maybe if I communicated more and been more firm with my boundaries instead of lying and pushing myself to limits that resulted into this distance I felt like I was slowly putting on him towards the end of the relationship, when he was mad at me once every 2 days, I would have been still in a relationship with him. I'm honestly sorry I dragged him around this relationship with my resentment, even though I knew this relationship was not right, but I knew he was dependent on me, so I tried to ignore my feelings for so long. Ever since we broke up, he got tighter with another girl, and we are in infrequent contact out of my concerns, and he was the one coming up with the idea, but I agreed out of politeness and Conan, and he keeps talking about how nice she is, and how he's glad he's in a relationship with someone who loves him. And he even tried to flirt with me and said that this type of thing was only ours, but we were both clear that we wouldn't get back together. I had to let this all out here because he didn't allow me to tell my friends about our relationship after he met a few of my friends and said he didn't like them, and by the time this whole thing went down I was alone and trusting no one but him. I wanted to mention that this summer I'm doing much better. I have been diagnosed with depression, and I'm starting to get a grip on life. I know what I want to do with my career from now on. Last summer I was so depressed I felt like life had no meaning and had no idea how I'm even going to make it to next year. I have built a new life for me. And even though the bad feeling returned, and I've developed some unhealthy habits during the relationship, I'm doing an okay job at trying to stop them. And I also reconnected with my friends, despite Dan arguing with me about it. While we're still tougher to not do that. And I'm planning to tell a therapist about all of this and build my own closure. So if you made it this far, thank you, and remember that no matter how hard life gets, you are strong enough to make it to the other side. I wish you all well.